It's 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo, baby! Good thing I have that intro memorized. How are you guys? Let's go see who's in that chat room. Let's see, we've got Dan Weber, Amanda West, hello Amanda, Kara Canyon, Martin Gravel, Darren Moss, who else? Nancy Kalel, Dean Turner, the usual cast of characters, Rick Cabot Podmore, Darren Fletcher, did I always say that? I don't know. John Pearson, hello. I just went out in the backyard to, I've got an active gopher mound going. So I've got the trap set, and I just went out there to check them, and man, oh man, hello, Il Rosso. It must be high pollen count day. Man, oh man, I just went through like a 5-minute sneezing attack. So if you hear me, or if you see me have a sneezing attack, it's pollen. Hello, Greg Carosa. Daryl Berman, Matt Bantle, Bob Gunnerfelt. It's like the Mickey Mouse Club, the same cast of characters. Andre Stepanian, Spiritual, Yuka, Scott Hansen, hey. Anyone know if the forum mods are passive currently? I have trouble getting verified. It usually takes 24 hours. You mean, so you just joined the forum and your first post didn't pop up yet? Hello, Jason Ferguson, Peter Rahill, L. Harrison, Darren Moss making scrambled eggs. Oh, don't tell me that I'm starving. Paul House, Robert Vellacourse, Pierre. Yes, smash it. Smash that like button right now. I know you guys are all subscribers, so I don't have to tell you to subscribe. But for new people watching the after show version of this, the not live version, hit that red subscribe button. Great show yesterday. Well, that's good, because we may be doing more of that today. Jim Stamper, how are you, Jim? Actually, I'm going to move the chat up a little bit so that I'm not looking down all the time. There we go. And it's very warm out today, so the air conditioner is going to be running a lot during today's show. Yeah, yesterday was a lot of fun, you know, and don't get frustrated if you were spitting out ideas and I wasn't like falling in love with them. Excuse me. It takes a while. It really takes a while. Ooh, on tonight's Taxi TV menu from Scott Hansen's restaurant in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, we're serving veal parmesan with spaghetti, our house salad, our homemade focaccia bread, and a glass of Chianti and some fava beans, I hope. Hello, Mark Reel. Warm in West Virginia as well, huh? One of our screeners is from West Virginia. Songs from a Headband, hello. Let's see, you should look at the number in the room and offer an extra show if you get that many likes. 50 people. Offer an extra show? You mean like 6 days a week? Hello, Michael McGraw. 33 in Hong Kong today. I'm guessing that's Celsius. And as you probably are keenly aware already, Americans have no idea how to do a quick translation from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So anyway, speaking of yesterday's show, actually, I'm going to open up this bad boy. A little Rockstar Revolt. Revolt. It's revolting. Double it and add 30. Okay, so double it would be 66, so 96 degrees. Woo. Jason Ferguson likes my halo. I know. That's me. Angelic. I have to remember that. Double it, add 30. Good to know. Thank you. Going for your Ovaltine. Wow, there's something I haven't had in a very long time. Okay. Excuse me. Dan Weber just made a stuffed pepper casserole without the meat. Would be good with a rock star. I wish they made it without all the caffeine and stuff in it. I just love the flavors. Okay, so remember when I told you how eventually I came upon Taxi being the world's leading independent A&R company, right? So this book, which I will show you in a second, what year was this published? Where's that page? Okay, this was published in 1996. So we now know that it was 1996 when I came up with the world's leading independent A&R company. How do we know that? Well, let me tell you. As soon as I can get this book gracefully open to where I want it. On page 64, Mr. Reese says, normally the company that pioneers the category goes on to become the leader. Hertz was the first company to rent cars. Hertz went on to become the rent-a-car leader. H&R Block was the first income tax service. H&R Block became the leader. Charles Schwab was the first discount brokerage firm. Charles Schwab became the leader. He goes on to talk about video rental places. And if I remember that, going to the Blockbuster, oh my gosh, there's a throwback, right? So I read that and I underlined it or highlighted it. There you go. Highlights. And then I got to page 91 and there's a subhead in there. And you guys are now going to get to see a little bit of taxi history. Under the subhead of the leadership effect, notice that I wrote taxi in a red pen. Taxi, leading independent A&R company. And then I thought it would be better if I said the world's leading independent A&R company. So there you go. In 1996, I learned something from a book and I used it and it worked. Read a lot. Taxi, I actually wrote taxi, comma, the world's leading independent A&R company, question mark, like I had to go back and think about that again. So there you go. It's funny, many years ago, probably right around 1996, 97, my wife used to do a lot of fundraising work for an organization, and she threw a fundraiser at a fairly well-off family's extremely large house. If I remember correctly, it was like 13,000 feet of house. And she came home and she said, you would really like the guy who is the owner of the house. I said, oh, really? What's he do? And she goes, he owns a guitar shop or something. They've got a room in their house that's like temperature controlled, humidity controlled, that's got like millions of dollars worth of rare guitars in it. And I said, really? What's his name? And she told me. I don't want to disclose it here because he's a pretty private person. Turns out the little guitar shop that he owned was Guitar Center. Yep, my wife held a fundraiser at the owner, major stockholder, CEO of Guitar Center when it was a privately held company. She said, you should call him. And you guys had really hit it off. So I cold called him. And I remember he said, you got some set of balls. And I said, why? He goes, I thought he was offended that I cold called him. But he said, I would never have the guts to call somebody. I called him and I said, my wife says we should go on a date. And he said, I'd never have the balls to call another Say you want to go out on a date. Anyway, he laughed, and so I don't know. A day later, 2 days later, he invited me to come over to his house, and he said, "Come on over. We'll hang out in the guitar room." So he meets me at the door with two very loud, very large Dobermans, and first time I met him, shakes my hand, which we couldn't do this week. Takes me upstairs. I walk in, and I think it was that time, the first time I went there. Walk in the room, and there is Steve Vai sitting there noodling on a guitar in the room. And I can't even begin to tell you the guitars. He had a lot of Gibson hollow body, like jazz guitars in there, but of course, just every guitar imaginable. A gold plated, was it gold plated or solid gold? Probably gold plated, I would imagine. Dobro, just all kinds of crazy stuff in there. Really, really rare stuff. Some celebrity guitars. I mean, he would regularly have, some of the biggest guitarists in the world would come over and hang out at his house. Anyway, he and I really hit it off. And our second date, I believe we went out to a restaurant together. I picked him up at his house. And I brought him a copy of this book because I just finished reading it and I loved it. And he got in my car. I said, "How you doing? Great to see you again. By the way, I'm reading this amazing marketing book. And I bought you a copy." He said, "Oh, well, that was very kind of you, but I don't really read that much," and handed it back to me. Anyway, that was a cute little story. Yeah, my second date. Yep, Steve Vai. I've got another Steve Vai story for you. So, same friend. His wife had a 50th birthday party, and they put up one of those big, giant, like wedding-sized tents in the backyard. And excuse me, that was a great party. Incredible food, and Steve Vai was there. Oh, it was a 70s party. So, if I remember correctly, Steve was dressed as like a pimp. He had on, like a pimp hat and a 70s big lapel suit and everything. And at some point, he jumped up with the band that was playing on the stage. It was a really good, like, wedding band, but really, really high end. Those guys were awesome. I wouldn't have been surprised if Skunk Baxter was the guitar player in that wedding band, because these folks could get pretty much anybody they wanted. Anyway, so Vi was there, and he jumped up on stage at some point, and he starts playing guitar with the band. Of course, all the guys in the band were just tickled pink by that. And Vi's playing behind his head. I think he might have played with his teeth a little bit. He was showing off, just having fun. Then he comes down off the stage, and he walks over and he says hi to me and shake hands, whatever. And I said, "Deb, this is my recently a new friend, Steve Vai. I met him through Ray." And Deb goes, "Are you like famous or something?" Oh man, I think she did that to Billy Joel, not Billy Joel, Billy Joe from Green Day. We were at like the ASCAP Awards or BMI Awards or some award thing, and at the back of the auditorium was a bar, and Deb said, "Come on, let's go grab a drink." So we mosey up to the bar, and Billy Joe comes up, and he's standing right next to Deb, and people are like shaking his hand like crazy and kind of fawning all over him. And I think she said, "Are you famous?" She really didn't know the Beatles had 4 members. Loves music, by the way. Loves music. But just couldn't be bothered with the details. Anyway. Getting caught up here on the chat. Yeah, we actually, speaking of Zappa, we have a taxi member named Richard who was the copyist for Frank Zappa. I featured him in the newsletter about 2 or 3 years ago, and he worked with Frank Zappa pretty much on a daily basis for years and had some great pictures of him and Frank in the studio. And just, boy, what an honor and a thrill that would be, huh? Working next to a true genius. Hold on, got to mute my phone. I felt the vibration. And I'm turning off the thing that vibrates. Okay, so what do you want to do today? Remember when we started doing these, I said, you guys, you guys run the show. What do you want to do? Do you want to do more of what we did yesterday? Do you want to do general Q&A? Do you guys want to tell me? Talk guitars. Interesting. Okay, we could talk guitars. Picnic at the beach. No problem, Amanda. Come on over. What's the latest? John Pearson wants to know on Hollywood opening up for productions. Any date yet? None that I've heard. And I talked to a music supervisor friend of mine. Today is Wednesday, so it was either Sunday or Monday night. And he said that the drums are beating loudly and everybody's chomping at the bit, and he's thinking it's going to be soon. So there you go. But no actual date has been announced. This flavor's good. It's grape, and it's just a little puckery in a good way. It's sad that I've become a connoisseur of energy drinks, right? Atlanta opening for production in July. Wow. Things will be very sweaty on those sets. Could you imagine? Atlanta in July. Daryl Berman said he heard the 12th for LA or Atlanta. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. It doesn't look like a heavy pollen day. There's no like layer of pollen on the grill on the patio or anything, but Darren Moss. My scrambled eggs and bacon on toast and a cup of coffee was excellent too. Ooh, that's what I should have made today. Iced coffee. LA, June 12th. Wow. Isn't that like 2 days from now? Wow, I'm going to have to search that. The gophers are kicking the pollen up. There you go. Man, I'm telling you. Now, I get excited when a new gopher shows up. I feel like an old friend has arrived that wants to be relocated. About Road Rally, what has changed about it? Do people still bring CDs? How about some Road Rally history? If I'd known you were going to ask that question, I would have had the first Road Rally picture with me. The first Road Rally was the result of, I had like advisory boards of taxi members, and I believe Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, Chicago, and I want maybe one in Florida and one in New Jersey. And I would actually go out and go to a city for the weekend and rent like a conference room in a hotel. And usually we had somewhere between maybe 4 and 10 people. And we would order up a ton of great food, a lot of barbecue, a lot of really good pizza, Chinese. And we would just hang out and brainstorm. I would listen to their music. They would tell me what they liked about Taxi, what they didn't like about Taxi, which screeners they didn't like, and just let it flow, I didn't have any structure to it other than saying, just talk about anything that's related to music or anything that's related to Taxi. And somebody said, you should have a convention. And I remember my shoulders tightening, going, that sounds like a lot of work. But we did it because, honestly, I was always really upset when I would fly. Like, I won't name the other conventions that I've spoken at, but before I started the Road Rally, I would pretty routinely be a panelist at other people's conventions. And I was always surprised by the lack of organization, number one, how frequently, like 30 to 50% of the panelists or mentors just didn't even show up. Um, they had a lot of volunteers working in critical jobs, and the volunteers were just uninformed. Nobody told them what they needed to know, so they were kind of useless. They were bodies, but they were, you know, bodies that couldn't tell you anything. Uh, so the other thing was the moderation of the panels. I'm sure I've talked about this on regular taxi TV. It was always really shocking to me that I'd be on a panel and the moderator, who was usually sitting on the dais with us, would just kind of look down the row and say, "Okay, Michael Lasco, tell us what your name is and what your company name is and what it is that you guys do. Tell us about a typical day in your life." Which I thought was just a weak form of moderation. I mean, they had, you could tell these moderators never did any prep work. They never studied anybody's bio. They never Googled them to see what they're up to lately. They never looked for, gee, what's the title of the panel? So that means if the title of the panel is, the direction of music for the next year, they wouldn't write any questions that were related to that. Maybe they would ask the panelists, so what do you think? Where is it going? I mean, just really dumb stuff. And I was always embarrassed to be on these panels. And so when the person at the taxi advisory board thing suggested doing a convention, I thought, you know what? Sounds like a lot of work, and it was, and it is. But it sounds like it felt like there was a lot of room for improvement. So that was when I made the decision, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it so much better than everybody else. We're going to be more organized. We're going to make sure people show up. And literally every year, we have like a 99% turnout from our people, the panelists and such. And although I did call the former head of the Guild of Music Supervisors, was supposed to be on a music soup panel. And I called her about 5 minutes before the panel. And I said, "I guess you're in the hotel, right? Just come to the ballroom." And she goes, "Oh, no, I'm on a set for a shoot for a movie I'm working on. I totally forgot." I went, "Oh, okay." Gingerly walked up to the stage, tucked her microphone in underneath the table, took her name card off the thing and said, "Okay, here we go." So you got to be able to bob and weave with things like that. But the other four panelists showed, and they were great. It's frankly, I don't think it's that hard, but I know you guys really well. I know what it is that you want to know. I know what it is that you need to learn. I know kind of the spectrum of members. I know, the people that are there for the first time and they're a little frightened or feel a little out of place, and they really don't know what to expect, and they don't know what to make of taxi. So I write questions that are kind of linear, that tell a story as I go on. And I love nothing more than when I finish a panel and somebody from the audience walks up and says, "That was great moderation. You asked every question that I wanted to ask. You just asked it more succinctly than I could have." To me, that's probably the greatest compliment you could give me, other than telling me my daughters are beautiful or something. Trevin Real says, "I've been a musician for 25 years. Well, you're amongst a bunch of other people that have been as well. Welcome, your new home. Let's see. So that's a little road rally history. The first year, I've told you all this stuff. First year, I guess Amanda hasn't watched every single episode. But the first year, we just did a ballroom, and we did like 2 panels in the first half of the day, then a lunch break, and then 2 panels in the afternoon. That was Saturday. And then we did Sunday, 2 panels in the morning, 2 panels in the afternoon. And that was it. It was over. We didn't have breakout classes. We didn't have luncheons. We didn't have one-to-one mentoring. But We did have alcohol in the bar, and we did the open mic. It was at. Remember, we did this on the taxi trivia episode last week. We had a bar, and the bar actually had a little stage in that hotel. It was at the Hilton in Woodland Hills on Canoga Avenue, right by our office, actually, really close, like a quarter of a mile away from our office. And that was a lot of fun. Everybody turned out, for the open mic because there was nothing else to do. And I think we had 300 people at that one. So that was pretty cool, gotta say. Loved it. What can I do to get back in taxi? How much would it cost? $5 million. Oh no, Cass already said that. Renewal is $199 if you renew while your current year is still in force. But I don't want to. That's not what we're here to talk about. But you would be joining at a really good time. We have never had such an intense amount of listings coming in. Any news on the sponsor stands this year? Who's going to be there? I just had a half an hour long call yesterday with my sponsor getter. He said sponsors are literally chomping at the bit because they haven't spent their budgets on the other conventions that got canceled, and they're all feeling like they're going to get lucky with the road rally because it's far enough away. So I can't disclose because I could tell you stuff and then people don't show. One company I would love to get would be Output. Um, I look at their stuff and just think it's really, really cool. And they're local here in LA, and I've actually played phone tag with the CEO of Output, so I hope we can get them. You know what else? They make a great desk. I want to say it's not that expensive, like $500 or $700, but it's built for studio gear. Um, my son-in-law has them or has one in his their spare bedroom at my daughter and son-in-law's house, and he's got his studio stuff set up on it. And I sat down at it a couple of weeks ago when I was over, and I just went, this thing is perfect. It's like everything you need. It's nice and simple. My son-in-law said it built, it ships flat and then you put it together, but kind of like an IKEA kitchen. But he said it went together very easily. Everything fit. He drilled a couple of extra holes for wire runs that that were more suited for the way he wanted to work, but he loved it. Um, Oops, I missed a couple of questions. Are road rally pictures somewhere online so we could have a look? Absolutely. Probably on our Facebook page, there's probably a road rally section. And also, if you go to taxi.com and look in the top banner, the navigation banner, nav bar at the top, you'll see a thing that says news. Click on that. It will take you to the current newsletter, which has John Pearson in it. Um, and then in the upper right hand corner, I believe, of that newsletter, like front page, there's a thing that says archives. And then go look for probably December of 2019 or January of 2020. One of those two issues of the newsletter was probably the one where we published a lot of photos from the rally. Uh, let's see, Andre, where's your question, Andre? Can you talk about current sound? How current is current? Still not sure. Returns, getting returns because of it. That's a deep subject. Um, oh, there you go. Bria just posted a link. There you go. It's December 2019. Um, the best thing you can do to sound current is listen to current pop radio or listen to Spotify playlists. It's funny, sometimes the companies will tell us they want something current, but the refs they give us are maybe 7 or 8 years old. But funny enough, a lot of the music, you can almost tell the age of the person who made the submission by listening to the submission. I'm 100% certain that if I were a songwriter, um, or a producer in today's market, that my stuff would sound dated to back when I fell in love with music, which was high school. And then I really got into it, like from 1974 on, when I got my first job in the industry. So I understand why people sound less than current, but things that make you sound current, first of all, are having current beats. And I don't understand how to make great beats. Honestly, I listen to some and go, wow, that's really cool. It would never pop into my head. But if I spent a ton of time listening to other current records, current, like hits right now, things that have been a hit in the last 6 months, that's current. All right. And you got to think that what the industry is looking for is usually a little ahead of the curve, not a little behind the curve, not a lot behind the curve. So listen to current stuff, and maybe listen to 20 or 30 songs and just listen to the beats, and make notes. Where the beat's falling. Are they long turnarounds or short turnarounds? Do they use an 808 kick drum? Do they use a trap snare? Where the accents, just anything you can do to analyze the beats. And then move on to the bass part. And just tear it apart like that. Is the bass part, is it a synth bass? Is it a string bass? Does it sound like it's a combo of those two things? How busy is the bass? Is the bass locking on every kick drum beat, or is it, doing like a bubbling thing, with accents on the kick drum beat? All those things go into the stew of what makes something sound current. And then, of course, any synthesizers, any pads that you use, any string sounds that you use, anything in the keyboard department, it's got to sound not like a DX7, I mean, it can't even sound like a synthesizer probably from 5 years ago. Sounds have gotten so much better so quickly that, download the best synths that you can afford to get, and spend a lot of time getting to know them, and listen to current records and go, oh, okay, so that Billie Eilish sound probably came from this company, this library, blah, blah, blah. So Robert says, but I love my Casio, don't we all? Andre says, DX7 is back, it's current right now. I shudder to believe that that's true, Andre. I don't want to believe that's true. I was never a fan of the DX7. And sadly, like the last couple of years that I actually did work on records, they were very popular with the groups that I worked with. And every time they'd come in, hey, look at my DX7, and I would plug those things in and just go, ugh. They just didn't sound good. John Pearson's lately adding a synth sub bass beneath his 5-string. Logic has great synth basses. Yeah, and think about this. Maybe you want to have a really current thing that sounds really current in every way, but has some little tinge of retro. Because, like right now, I think we're going through a period where there's a lot of stuff that is thrown back to the 80s a bit, but it shouldn't sound just like the 80s. Maybe it would have, like an 80s synth sound or an 80s bass sound, or maybe those two things. So play around with that stuff. Ray Hill says probably no more dated sound than a DX7. That's true. Okay, and Robin Frederick has actually done, there are a couple of Taxi TV episodes with Robin. And also Jason Bloom touched on this when we did the melody thing. Melodies don't sound the same today as they did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. So look at the melodies. I don't know what to tell you other than look at the melodies. I can hear a dated sounding melody. I would create personally dated sounding melodies. I would have to sit down, and you have to just absorb the stuff. You can't do it for 5 minutes or half an hour. You have to sit down and listen to it enough times that it just becomes, through osmosis, it becomes part of you. So when you start laying down your tracks, that's what comes out of you too. You don't have to work that hard at sounding current because you are now inundated. You've been injected with currency. I'd like somebody to inject me with currency, preferably gold, something that holds its value. Well, sometimes holds its value. um, Things like Robin talks about this all the time on episodes. Where does the rhythm? Where does the rhythm of the vocal lie, and where do the phrases start? You know, do you do like whole, 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 eighth, eighth, eighth? Do you do whole half, eighth, eighth, eighth half? That wasn't a very good representation, but you get it. It's like things do change. There are trends now. Of course, following trends. If there's something that's on the radio now, that record was probably made a year and a half ago. So, what are people doing now, and what will you be hearing in 6 months? You're probably better off going to Spotify and listening to the most popular indie artists on Spotify, because the mainstream artists also listen to the indie artists and they pull ideas from them and then make those ideas less indie and more commercial, right? So there you go. Dan Weber dated a melody, but it didn't work out. Oh, now you're getting into my type of humor. Bad. Starting on a 1 or starting on a 2, Robin, to open up my eyes that way? Absolutely. Yeah, don't always start your vocal phrasing on the downbeat. It's just too easy, and people moved past that years ago. Halloween show, Michael dresses like Batman, interviews Robin, and they both drink Rockstar. I don't think Robin would touch that stuff. Question: out of 100%, what is a current day taxi's focus on? Whoa. Honestly, Darren, I can't really break it down like that for you because it changes every day. I sometimes will go 6 or 8 days without getting a single label listing in, and then all of a sudden we'll get 4 in a day. Other times we'll have a stretch where for a week it seems like all we're getting is mostly indie label stuff with a few major label artists looking for material. And we start to get a little worried. It's like, well, how's that going to affect the film and TV people? And then all of a sudden we'll get like 12 film and TV listings in instantly. And, you know, it is, we probably do try to develop our film and TV clientele more so than the label side, because we know the odds of a taxi member getting signed to a major label deal as a recording artist or getting a cut with a multi-platinum Grammy-winning artist, those are really hard achievements. They can be done. I mean, new songwriters do break through and new artists do break through, but the odds are much, 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 much better getting an instrumental cue in a reality TV show. So we do tend to go that way because we like to see the members have incremental steps, like little rewards along the way. Nothing gets a taxi member more excited about doing music and doing a lot more music than getting their first deal or getting their first placement. Do you have a simple definition of radio ready? I don't mean to be coy, I think might be the right word, but does it sound like it should be on the radio? It kind of describes itself, Pierre. What does radio ready mean? It sounds competitive, writing-wise, engineering-wise, production-wise, everything-wise with what's on the radio. Okay, let me scroll down. Media ready master. It's odd, Mark Reel says, but I just came across a YouTube video today with one note melody songs. You know, there are always exceptions. I wouldn't put my money on that. They do happen. Yeah, USP, Amanda, is a unique selling proposition. Taxi's unique selling proposition, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, from the book I'm looking at over there in that chair, is we are the world's leading independent A&R company. There can only be one leader. And that's not to say everyone watching the show today should be like, I'm the world's leading orchestral composer, because you're not. You got to be honest. Obviously, people wouldn't take too long to figure that out. Yeah, having a unique selling proposition and an elevator speech ties into that. I told the story yesterday about getting in the elevator, I think at the Philly Music Conference, and two guys, musicians, were talking to each other. They had no idea who I was, and one guy said to the other, "What do you think of that company, Taxi?" And he said it with kind of like, they suck, don't they? Huh? Probably. And the other guy goes, "I don't know. They must be doing something right. They're the world's leading independent A&R company." And I laughed because that was exactly what this book told me to do, to own something, own a piece of real estate in your prospective buyers' minds. That's part of marketing. It's a big part of marketing. And so there the guy was actually regurgitating the phrase to another person. And that's exactly what you want. Seth Godin always, he's another like pop marketing guy, not pop music, but yep, Al Reese. Seth Godin always talks about being remarkable, and that means one person remarks to another. Not good at speeches. You don't have to be good. If somebody asks me, what does Taxi do in an elevator? This happens all the time. If we go to somebody's house for a barbecue, somebody sooner or later is going to say, what do you do, Michael? I'm in the music business. Oh, really? You're in the music business? Wow. Um, what do you do in the music business? And I say, well, I own a company called Taxi.com, and we help independent songwriters, artists, and composers get their music to record labels, publishers, and music supervisors working on film and television. And they go, wow, you've said that before, huh? You've practiced that. Well, I've answered the question like a million times. Um, Andre doesn't have an elevator speech, that's why he doesn't take the elevator. Well, you could always tell people I fish for a living, which I'm so envious of. Just so envious of that. I fish for a living, but I make really good music for film and TV as well. And they'll remember you as the fishing musician. All right. The chat room just came to a dead stop. There we go. David Foster never takes an elevator. Yeah, he should never get married, is what David Foster should never do. uh, I love Little Big Town. Love Little Big Town. Guitar playing goat herder. Mr. Cass McKenty, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Amanda says, maybe I'm the organic songwriter. I don't know what that means, though. What does that mean? That you only eat, raw vegetables? John Pearson says, yep, he tried going lowball for a while, probably on his vocalist, but the tracks or musicians he was hiring, whatever. But stuff sounds amateur. Yeah, you get what you pay for. No question about that. Um, as a flautist, I miss Pied Piper days. Um, that just reminded me of Aqualung and Thick as a Brick, two incredibly good albums. Plenty of flute on those, right, Jethro Tull? Yeah, Little Big Town. Those are like Eagle quality harmonies. not that this applies to you, but one of the rules, it's either in this book, Repositioning, which is Jack Trout, who was half of Reese and Trout. I think I've read most everything these guys have written, except the last few books were not that good. I like your backdrop. Are you in Hollywood? No, I'm not. But I am in Southern California. And that is my front door. Well, that's a clock and a vase and some flowers right there. There's my halo. There's the dining room. That's my great grandparents right there. Jack Trout. Yep. Love Jack Trout. That'd be a good name if they come up with a new kind of trout, a species, a subspecies they haven't identified yet. They'd have to name it Jack Trout, I think. If your strength is songwriting and are bad at operating gear, in that situation would use demo services or buckle in for years and years of learning to record at home, or both. Honestly, Darren, demo services are great, especially if you're demoing songs to pitch to artists and you want really high. There's some great services out there. But honestly, just learn to run your own studio. Because inevitably, if you use a demo service and you submit to Taxi and they say, well, the song's pretty good, but it would be better if it had a bridge, and I think you should add harmonies to the chorus. Any changes like that, you've got to go back to the demo studio, and you'll end up spending as much making those changes, or even mix changes, So it's a very expensive thing. Plus, it dramatically limits your output. And one of the keys to success with Taxi, or just being in the industry, period, is making a lot of music. Doing, 4 songs a year and using a demo service to make them. You might end up with 4 really great sounding pieces of music, but you can't change them. You can't adapt them. What if your lyrics, you find out, from 3 screeners in a row say your lyrics aren't as good as your track? What do you do? Well, a lot of members that are in that situation just keep submitting anyway because they can't afford or don't want to go back to the demo service to fix it. And they just give up because they think, man, if every time I'm going to get feedback from Taxi, I've got to go back to the demo service and spend money and time fixing it. Nope. You need to learn how to run this gear. And I'm absolutely certain that you can do it, because look at all your fellow members in the chat room that have to do it. Caroz is going to cook dinner. I'm not the only one who cooks. My wife has gotten very used to me. I cook dinner virtually every night now. She does Friday night dinners. I do the rest. That's right. I'm in Tijuana. See you, Greg. What's the singer-songwriter instrumental or cue like? The definition of a singer-songwriter today is somewhat different. That it's not James Taylor, Carole King, 70s or late 60s, early 70s kind of stuff anymore. It's not Jackson Browne. It's not J.D. Souther. I'm trying to think of a modern day singer-songwriter that's got the kind of sound I'm looking for. I can't think of one. Anyway, if Pearson can do it, you can do it. You really can do it. I know you can do it. And plus, there's so many videos. Man, oh man, I've been, trying to talk myself in. I don't need to be talked into. I'm going to buy Logic and start teaching myself how to do it, so I can take all my old engineering skills and actually do something with them. And just watching some of the beginner videos on Logic, they're really, really, really good. So, getting back to singer-songwriter instrumentals. Colby Calais is a great example of a fairly, she's not extremely current. It's been a while since she's had a hit now. It's been a few years. maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years. I don't know, but at least she doesn't sound dated. Um, and a singer-songwriter doesn't have to be strummy acoustic guitar anymore. Why can I not think of this guy's name? I can't. Anyway, um, I'm trying to think of some other artists. How about Ed Sheeran? There you go. So imagine Ed Sheeran's music if you took out his lyrics and his vocal. Imagine those tracks and now take a lead instrument and put back some melody. Not a full melody like the vocal would do, because, as I've said 1,000 times on the show, it will end up sounding like 101 strings. It'll sound like elevator music, like Montevani doing the Beatles or something. You don't want to do that. But just listen to what the track is, and take it apart and put one together of your own with your own chord changes, your own sounds, and you could even mimic the sounds. You just have to come up with original chords, original chord progression, and then come up with a melody that's very sparse but gives it some sort of forward movement, okay? And that's where you should go. Oh, I see Vance Joy is a great singer-songwriter. Yes, he is. Speaking of Vances, 40 some years ago, my music attorney in New York City was also the music attorney for a gentleman named Kenny Vance, who was in Jay and the Americans, was a writer that hung out at the Brill Building in New York. He became very well known as a doo-wop act. And you're welcome, Yuka. Anyway, so that was Kenny Vance. I met him at my attorney's office, I think, twice. And then about 10, 15 years ago, in our office building in Calabasas, one of those tax relief companies moved in below us. And a guy who's kind of like their general pitch hitting kind of guy that does everything in the company, he and I have been running into each other a million times in the parking lot over the years. And he said, "So what do you guys do at Taxi?" And I gave him my elevator speech. He said, "Oh, that's cool. You might know my dad. His name is Kenny Vance." I said, "Yeah, I've actually met your dad." So the son, who's got to be in his mid-40s now, I'm guessing that Kenny Vance is probably in his 70s. The son's in his mid-40s. And the other day, I was on the phone with an industry friend of mine who I haven't spoken to in probably 2 years, and we had like a 2-hour conversation. And he said, "By the way, I remember you mentioning that you were in Israel in February. Did you know that Ronnie Vance lives in Israel?" Well, Ronnie Vance might be the most well-liked guy in the publishing side of the music industry ever. He was president of Geffen Music. He was president of Interscope Music, not Interscope Records, but Interscope Music Publishing. So he's had an illustrious career as a publisher. And at some point, he and his wife moved to Israel, and they live in the old city in Jerusalem near the Wailing Wall. And so I've been playing phone tag for the last 12 hours or so with Ronnie Vance. So I know both brothers, and I know the nephew. Actually, I haven't met Ronnie Vance yet. We spoke for a second on the phone. He said, "I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you back." So I thought that was kind of cool. What's the Eric Clapton song? Tears in Heaven. One of the songs from that period of time. One of those, Clapton classic hits that was, or no, what's the other acoustic Clapton hit? Not Tears in Heaven. Do I have to open my browser? Wow, it's 4:54. Wasn't wonderful tonight. Oh well. I'm going to go back to you guys and see if somebody got it. Uh, you can change the world. Thank you. Um, so Ronnie Vance was the publisher that got that song to Clapton and got a cut. That's one of his bigger accomplishments. Um, anyway, he's really, really, really well known in the industry, and really well liked, and so he and I are connecting. His acoustic version of Baby Shark. I'm going to call Eric up and suggest that he does that. I think that's an excellent idea. Wow, it's 4:55. I want to sign with Taxi tomorrow. Me too. Me too. Baby sharks all over the place. Darren Moss, I prefer the real drums over programmed drums for my style of music. I'm not much of a drummer. What's the best advice for recording at home? Collaborate, play small sections yourself, session. My advice, and other people may be better to ask than me, but I would do something like, I hear that the drums actually in Logic are really good, but what's the drum program I mention all the time? Superior Drummer. Pick up Superior Drummer. It's, I don't know, a couple $100 or something. It's not very expensive. And lay down drums that you like. It's got a setting where you can adjust like the human feel, and then also overdub some real parts on top of it. Yeah, from Tune Tracks, absolutely. Addictive Drums is also great. Yep, I hear great things about it. Superior Drums, Tune Tracks, make Superior Drum an easy drummer. And then maybe play your own cymbals if you already have drums at home. Maybe do real fills. Although you're going to find that those drum programs are really, really good, but you have to learn, like any software, you have to keep using it and using it till you get like, masterful at it. Cher Closer Lane, how are you, Cher? Good to see you in here. Yes, drums in Logic are really good. Thank you for backing me up on that, because I've never used them. I've only heard that. John Pearson says Logic Drummer is insane. You have to really learn it, but OMG. Um, yeah, Steven Slate Drums, I hear very, very good things about that. Yeah, just adding a real shaker. That's a great suggestion. Martin Gravel just says add add a shaker. Yep, adding a shaker and playing. Don't just take like a bar of shaker or a chorus of shaker. Play it all the way through and punch in if you blow one. Just keep going. And Ray Hill says yes, of course we need more real cowbell. Cher is busy. Good to hear that. Shakers are hard. How many guys have ever taken the little aluminum film cans and put marijuana seeds in them and used those as a shaker? Because I know a guy who's done that. Carosa, did you already make dinner and come back? Or you've got the laptop sitting next to the stovetop, right? Uh, Wow. Good night, Paul. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that you got to get up in 4 hours. I'm right there with you. I had like 4.5 hours of sleep last night. I keep saying, okay, at like 10 o'clock, let's go upstairs, Deb. Let's go to bed early tonight. And then she goes upstairs and I go set up the coffee for tomorrow morning. Um, and then I do other little things, putzing around downstairs, closing the blinds, making sure all the doors are locked and the lights are out. Then by the time I get upstairs and I take all my vitamins or whatever it is, just little odds and ends, all those little things you do before you hit, the bed. And I go, oh my gosh, it's already like 11:30, and then I get into bed and I probably have a couple of tangerines because I tend to eat tangerines every night. And then get sucked into a TV show, and before I know it, it's like 1:30 in the morning, and then I can't sleep, and then before I know it, I wake up at 6:40 in the morning. This morning it was 6:20, just wide awake. Anyway, it's 5 o'clock. I can't believe how my family would say, I can believe you can talk for an hour with no plan. Uh, they all leave the room. You guys don't have to show up, but you do, and I'm grateful for that. Um, Michael, do you want to talk about the Motive keyboard? No, because I know nothing about it. Lori says, my boyfriend says, whoops, says, I say I'm going to bed like 5 times before actually getting there. There you go. I know that feeling. Oh, the Motif keyboard. I've seen them. I've messed around with them at the road rally, but I've never actually hung out with one. Um, all right. So that's it, folks. Our time together is over. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up. You're welcome, Cass. Good to see you. Uh, Make sure you subscribe. Post some good ideas for shows in the comments. I will be forever grateful. I actually do read the comments almost every day. You know what? That's what I get sucked into at 11:30 at night. As I walk by the computer, which is sitting right here at the 6-foot square table, and I go, I'm just going to check, see if anybody joined, and I'm going to see if anybody commented. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but sometimes when I do answer comments, it's like I'm answering them at anywhere between 11:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, wow, my stuffed pepper casserole is not so good. Anyway, great to see you all. Cher, thanks for stopping in. Great to see you. That's it. See you tomorrow for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Turn the computer off at 9 p.m. I sleep with it under the bed. Bye, you guys.